Welcome to my channel.
And this is English Podcast Station.
Today, we're zoning in on something, well, pretty fundamental, your daily routine.
Right. And being able to actually talk about it in English, that's super important.
Definitely. Whether you're just starting out with English or maybe you're prepping for the IELTS exam, the speaking part 1 especially.
Mm-hmm. Or even just for, everyday chats. If you're a student, if you're working, it comes up all the time.
Exactly. So from the materials, we've looked at some notes, an IELTS podcast transcript, a study guide for beginners. It's clear this is a core skill.
Yeah, foundational stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So today, we'll unpack the key bits to help you describe your day, clearly and with a bit more confidence.
Okay, let's dive right in. First up, the absolute basics, the vocabulary. Think of these as the building blocks.
These are the words that just kept appearing in all the examples we saw. They're essential.
Right. So first one, wake up.
Simple enough. Like in the example, I wake up at 7 a.m. That's just, when your eyes open, the start.
And then closely related, but slightly different, get up.
Yeah, the study guide made a good point here. I get up and leave my bed. So waking up is the moment. Getting up is the actual action.
Got it.
Okay, next, a very common one, brush my teeth. Pretty standard. An example sentence would be, I brush my teeth in the bathroom. You hear this all the time in routine descriptions.
And then maybe take a shower.
Right. I take a shower every morning, feeling fresh. The IELTS source mentioned this is often part of the morning routine questions.
Makes sense. After that, get dressed.
Yep. I get dressed for work or school. Straightforward action usually follows the shower.
Okay, need some energy. Eat breakfast.
I eat eggs and toast for breakfast. That's just an example, of course. Lots of different breakfasts out there. But the verb phrase eat breakfast is key.
Then depending on your day.
To either go to work or go to school. Like I go to work at 9 a.m. or maybe I go to school at 8 a.m. That little word to is important there.
Okay, middle of the day.
Usually have lunch. Simple one. I have lunch at noon or whenever you take your break, really.
Right. Then later on, the day starts winding down.
Come home. Example, I come home at 5 p.m., back from work or school.
And if you're making the evening meal,
that would be cook dinner. Something like, I cook rice and vegetables.
Yeah.
Again, the food varies, but cook dinner is the phrase you need.
For the evening, maybe some relaxing.
Yeah, watch TV came up a lot.
Yeah.
Or watch the news or a show. Common evening pastime.
And finally, to end the day,
go to bed. As in, I go to bed at 10 p.m. Time to sleep.
So those 12 phrases pulled from all our sources, that's really your basic toolkit, isn't it?
Absolutely. They're simple, they're direct, and they let you start building out descriptions of your day.
Okay, great. So we have the words. Now, how do they fit together? Let's talk about a typical morning routine.
Yeah, based on the examples, especially from that IELTS podcast transcript, a common pattern emerged.
Like what?
Well, someone mentioned waking up, say, 6:30 a.m., then brushing teeth, taking a shower, getting dressed, eating breakfast, and then leaving for work. It gives a nice sequence.
Right. And to make that more concrete, let's imagine a quick chat about it. How might that sound?
Well, the beginner's guide suggested simple questions, and answers are great for practice.
Okay, let's try that. Imagine this dialogue.
What time do you wake up?
I wake up at 7 a.m.
Okay. What do you do next?
Well, I brush my teeth and take a shower. Then I eat breakfast.
Do you make your own breakfast?
Yeah. I usually have toast and eggs. What about you?
I usually just drink coffee and eat cereal.
See? Just using those basic words, you can have a simple conversation asking about the order of things.
Exactly. And like we saw, the details might differ, the toast and eggs versus cereal, but that makes it interesting. Talking about your own morning is really good fluency practice.
Okay, so that's the morning covered. What about the rest of the day? Afternoons, evenings?
Well, the materials generally pointed to afternoons being, work or study time, usually with a lunch break in there somewhere.
Or evenings?
Evenings tend to be about coming home, maybe cooking dinner, relaxing somehow, watching TV, reading, whatever it might be.
Right, so let's do another quick dialogue example for that part of the day.
Sure. This one pulls together common evening activities we saw mentioned.
Okay, here we go.
So, what do you do after work?
I go home and cook dinner. Then I usually relax.
What time do you eat dinner?
Normally around 7 p.m.
Do you watch TV?
Yeah. I like to watch the news or maybe a movie sometimes.
And what time do you generally go to bed?
Usually around 10 p.m.
So, again, just one example. Your evening could be totally different. But the point is being able to say what you do using that vocabulary. The study guide really stressed that.
Definitely. Okay, now let's specifically talk to anyone listening who's preparing for IELTS Speaking Part 1. This is really relevant for you.
Oh, absolutely. Our review of that IELTS podcast showed this topic, daily routines, comes up very frequently in part 1.
Why is that, do you think?
Well, it lets the examiner hear you talk about familiar everyday things using basic functional language. It's a good test of that core ability.
Makes sense. So we've modeled a short exchange like you might have in the test based on those podcast examples.
Right. And remember, the podcast emphasized keeping answers clear and pretty concise for part 1. You don't need super complex sentences here.
Okay, let's imagine this. The examiner asks,
What time do you usually wake up?
I usually wake up at 6:30 in the morning.
Okay. What do you do after that?
I brush my teeth, take a shower, and eat breakfast.
Do you work or study?
I study English at a language school.
And what do you do in the evening?
I cook dinner, relax with my family, and go to bed around 10 p.m.
See how direct those answers are. They answer the question clearly. That's what the IELTS podcast analysis suggested is key for part 1. Clarity, natural flow.
Not necessarily showing off complex grammar yet.
Exactly.
And the podcast advice was really practical too. Keep it simple, keep it clear, sound natural, don't panic about tiny mistakes.
Yeah, just keep talking. Confidence is important.
It really shows how far that basic vocabulary can take you, even in a test situation. Mastering those fundamentals is, well, fundamental.
Couldn't agree more.
Okay, just to give one more angle, let's look at another quick conversation. This time, maybe more informal, like two friends chatting about their weekdays.
Yeah, this kind of exchange, like we saw in one of the transcripts, shows how routines are just a normal part of everyday talk. It gives you more freezing ideas.
All right, let's listen to this example.
Hey, Erica.
Mhm.
What does your typical weekday look like?
Oh, well, I wake up around 6:30 a.m., make some coffee, and then get ready for work.
Do you eat breakfast at home?
Yeah, usually just something quick toast and fruit, maybe. Then I leave for the office about 8 a.m.
What time do you actually start work?
I start at 9 a.m. and usually finish around 5 p.m.
Phew, that's a full day.
It is.
Yeah.
After work, I often go to the gym, or sometimes I just cook dinner at home.
Sounds pretty productive. I do something kind of similar. I try to start my day with a bit of exercise. Then I work 9 to 6 usually.
And how do you wind down in the evening?
I like to read books or maybe watch a TV show. I aim to be asleep by 10:30 or so.
That sounds like a good routine. You know, having that structure really helps, I find, especially when you're trying to fit in studying English, too.
Yeah, that's a great point. And you see, Again, routines have similarities, but also those personal touches. The conversation just flows. It's a good model to aim for.
Definitely. So let's kind of wrap up this deep dive on talking about your daily routine. We've hit quite a few areas.
We started with that core vocabulary, the essential words you need.
Then we looked at how to string them together for morning, afternoon, and evening routines using examples.
And we dove into practice conversations, including that specific look at IELTS Speaking Part 1.
Right, all drawn from those notes and transcripts we analyzed.
And I think the main takeaway really is just practice.
Yeah,
The more you actually say your routine out loud, the more natural it's going to feel, and the better your English will flow.
totally agree. So here's something to think about as we finish. Take a moment later today or tomorrow and really consider your own daily routine, step by step. Then try describing it out loud in English. Even if no one else is listening, just practice forming the sentences.
It sounds simple, but using the vocabulary and patterns we talked about today for your own life, that can make a huge difference to your confidence.
Yeah, think about how much easier connecting with people in English becomes when you can just naturally share a bit about your day. It's a small thing, but it opens up a lot of doors.